Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Never Gets Old podcast. This week we have a special guest for you. Mac and I talk with Jen Chapin, Harry Chapin's daughter. I do have to say before we start this podcast that there's a little bit of technical difficulty, I suppose, throughout. The sound will go in and out, but it does end up fixing itself through most of the podcast. It's still very easy to listen to. So if you can uh, make it through the choppy points, the conversation is well worth it. She was a great guest and very, very nice. So without further ado, here's a special edition of Never Gets Old with Jen Chapin.
Little man, I can see you are not such a mystery to me. Little questions, little highs, little lows in a row, senses overflow. I've been thinking about this sad world, about survival, and the one thing you should know is find your joy and let it show.
Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Never Gets Old, the podcast that's about the best in TV, music, comics, and movies. I'm Mac Jackson.
And I'm Nick Narrow.
And our wonderful guest today is Jen Chapin, who's nice enough to do this with us. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you.
No problem. Instead of, one of the things I was saying to Nick was I don't want to do the cliche type of questions since we're all just shooting the bull. And, like, oh, how'd you get your start? And I'm sure those type of things will come up in conversation.
So how did you get your start? No, I'm just kidding.
No.
It depends what you mean by start.
Okay, fair enough.
No, one of the first questions I was thinking of, just to be different, was how did you meet your husband?
It's funny, we just had the opportunity to tell this story, although he had marginal interest, but we told this story to our son, our older son, Maceo. Because we were talking about how he would not be here except for music, because we met because he was subbing for my bass player, who was a good friend and one of my Berklee College of Music cohorts, and he couldn't do a show I had coming up this is in 96, I believe, fall of 96, and so I asked my another bandmate who played tenor saxophone. His name was Chris Cheekin. He's also still a friend and fantastic musician. But I asked Chris, do you know a bass player to recommend? And he said, yeah, well, I know this guy, Stefan Crump. You should try him. He's from Memphis, Tennessee, and he used to be in a band called Big Ass Truck. And I thought, that sounds good. I called him up and, hired him for that gig and went. I hadn't even met him. I just went and dropped off a cassette tape of live recordings and from gigs and things that we had of my songs, various states of completeness, songs I had, and dropped them off for him. And then we met, and then he came over for a rehearsal. and I didn't pay that much attention to him, partly because he was so darn competent. He didn't really require, it was just sort of just played the bass and did the job, and we were both dating other people. And then later we had a lot of mutual friends, and it was a time of just hanging out, going to hear your friends play, and he was in a bunch of different bands with a bunch of different friends, and he would come hear me play, sometimes with my regular band, and so and then eventually we were dating other people, and then things evolved from there. When we were working together more, and we're dating, and then he said, I don't think we should play together and date. I think it's a little too much for people to handle. So I said, okay, whatever. I know other great bass players. So then we weren't working together. But then eventually, when we got married, it started to feel kind of artificial, because he's basically my favorite bass player. So again, I have many. I'm very if I'm proud of anything, and if I'm a little bit highfalutin, it's about the musical community and the high caliber of musicians that I've been able to associate with throughout. It's just been really fantastic.
Yeah.
And good people, good players, and my bar has been set high, from when I was in high school and college, just playing in the frat party funk bands. It was definitely, some great players. So, Stefan, he's raised the bar even farther.
Well, it's funny too that you would understand this, because my wife and I, she's in the band with me,
Right.
and it's a heck of a I don't know. I feel extra lucky because you love somebody, but to have them be part of what you love intimately, like as a crucial part, is just, that's a blessing.
Yeah.
I never thought the person that I was going to end up with was someone who I was going to be making music with, and the harmony was going to be so important to our sound.
Yeah.
Right. It
You
sounds
are
like the icing on the cake.
uniquely positioned to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm sorry, what were you saying, Nick?
I said it sounds like the icing on the cake to be able to get with someone.
Yeah, it's very challenging, because when you're in a band with people and you're really committed, I mean, forget about like a real, like a legendary chemical combustion of talent, like the Police, for instance, who by all accounts couldn't really deal with each other. They just made amazing music.
Yeah.
But to varying degrees, anytime you're in a band, it's almost like a romantic relationship. That you have this intensity, and you have the chemistry, and when you break up with somebody as a bandmate, and I've done that a few times, it's you almost fall back into the same cliches, like, it's not you, it's me. It's just not working. When you have to kind of break up, you have to kind of move on. Just you're looking for something different. Somebody could be fantastic, but just not what you're looking for, or the chemistry's not right, or the communication is a little, or they're not at the same level of commitment as you're at. All these things. The metaphor. So, and then it's also with a band. I don't know how it is with you guys, but when you're playing with other people in a larger group, you can be pretty self-conscious about, like, well, am I being more critical of my partner or less critical? Am I cutting them too slack?
Yeah, it's a fine line.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Stefan also, when you bring the gender issues and the fact that pretty much anybody I've ever played with is a man, and pretty much anybody I want to play with is a man, and and it's the 21st century. We women are strong and empowered, but sometimes I'm self-conscious about, like, if Stefan has a lot of opinions, which he always does, and if he's really sort of, he's not officially the musical director, but sometimes he knows the songs better than anybody, so he ends up having a lead role, and I kind of want to be like, well, hey, it's my song, that all that stuff can be intense.
Yeah.
As it's just challenging, like any partnership, but at the same time, if we didn't have this connection, if we were both like in very different careers, and if we didn't get to put our kids in their car seats and pack them in a minivan and go on tour together, with our very tolerant third trio mate, Jamie Foxx, on the guitar, kind of a member of the family. If we didn't get to do that, I guess we would have other connections, but I'm not sure what they would be. So it's definitely core of our marriage.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I can't even imagine what it'd be like if you were married but not in the same band together, because you do travel a lot, and what do you do? Would he stay home? Like what would it, what would that be if he wasn't part of the band?
Well, if he wasn't part of the band, he's got about 4 other jobs that are as high profile, more. He just was nominated for a Grammy
Awesome.
last year with the Vijay, as part of the Vijay Iyer trio. And Vijay Iyer he's a piano player and sort of vaunted as the future of jazz, basically. Like, he's on the cover of this month's Downbeat magazine, and the work that they've done as a trio, with Vijay and a wonderful drummer named Marcus Gilmore, has really electrified the jazz world, and particularly in Europe, where they really have an audience. So Stefan is, and I kind of stay out of the way, because that's that helps, that pays our mortgage, and they're in their time right now. They're and so I've got 2 little kids. I'm trying to focus on songwriting right now, to whatever lame degree I can focus on that, because I'm actually in a good run these last few weeks, where I do songs before turning on the computer, but that doesn't mean I'm spewing them out. It's an uphill climb, but
Welcome
anyway,
to my world.
I step out of I'm the last couple years, I'm sort of stepping to the side for Stefan's other musical expressions. With the Vijay Art Trio and his own trio, there's this trio theme, but Rosetta Trio is his own group, which I've collaborated with as well. But his own compositions, and they just did a very successful tour in Europe in January, and yeah, he plays with quite a few people, and he's a really serious artist. He's always got ideas turning. So if we weren't, it's I had a roundabout kind of journey to committing to being a musician, because when people ask about say my father Harry's influence on me, it's very clear that in both my parents, their influence was as much or more so as community activists and people who are committed to making a difference in the social realm, more than as artists. Well, the 2 were both there neck and neck, but I wasn't sure that I was I wrestled with the idea of being a musician for a long time, and I came to it late. But I always
what age?
figured I would. Well,
What
I
age?
wrote my first song when I was 22, I think, or 21 or 22. I always sang, but it was in a non-committal way. I sang classic rock covers and sang in the choir and played the flute. But when I was graduating from college with a bachelor's degree in international relations, and I was studying public policy and diplomacy and international development and all these things that were connected more to an interest in hunger, and I was thinking maybe I'd be a teacher. I started to late in my academic career, I started to get involved in wanting in education and seeing how that maybe that's the way I can make a difference most effectively. And then basically my college band, which was a fantastic band and much fun, one of those that was about having as many people on stage as possible, superfluous or not, sort of on the P-Funk Parliament model.
Yeah.
Although none of us were wearing diapers, but we were definitely inspired by that. But that band, which was called Mother Fridge, which was my college band, like broke up and then and that basically made me feel like whatever happens, whatever job I have, whatever kind of nonprofit I work for, or fifth grade class I teach, I want to moonlight as a musician. I want to play, in a blues band once a week, and I don't want to be dispensable. I want to be.
Yeah.
So I figured out how to learn some more music theory. I wanted to sort of enhance my vocabulary, and I wanted to learn how to, if not be a real songwriter, at least not be afraid of that. And so then, having a supportive artistic family, I was able to turn around and go to Berklee College of Music, which, there's a debate, and there always will be, about the utility of music school and that music school in particular. But for me, I didn't have the discipline. I had some money, and I didn't have the discipline to be self-trained, and I needed to be immersed in a musical environment and be part of a community. And that's really what it's always been for me, is hanging out with the guys, shit talking, and a community of musicians, and I have 3 brothers, so that part of the musical world is it's not uncomfortable for me.
Well, no, and it's funny too, because I mean, you're, your family is so unique, because if you look at anybody in your family, they're all doing teaching or music, or of course everybody knows about your dad, but I'm just thinking about everybody, and it's an impressive family. Right. So I didn't know if you felt like, I don't know, like you didn't have a choice, like you knew right from the beginning, oh, I'm going to be a musician.
No, I was going to ask. Felt like I had a choice.
I was going to ask if.
Well,
did you?
My dad died when I was 10.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
He died when I was 10, and his life was not. His life was epic.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, he was 30. I'm older than he was when he died.
He was 38, right?
He was 38. I'm 41.
Okay.
Yeah. I've been older than him for a few years. So
I'm a year away.
Yeah, so that's a pretty. That's I was never. I mean, I have a lot of connections to his legacy, and in some ways, I am his legacy. I'm the one who's out there doing it, and especially my role as a spokesperson.
Right.
I do some speaking engagements for Why Hunger, he was a musician and the
Hang on,
200
guys.
concerts a year or
Hang
whatever
on.
it was, or
You
that was never it, just the manicness of it just made it seem like I mean, I also was not writing 400, I didn't feel that drive to write, and I was attracted to music in different ways. I was attracted to soul music. I was sang along with Shaka Khan LPs. I
Right.
was I was not his music was part of my life, and it was inseparable from my childhood, but it was not the obvious thing. And then when you're a teenager and you start thinking a little bit about what you're going to do, he wasn't around, so I had many other influences. It was not my destiny. It was and at the time when he was lit on fire by Pete Seeger and the Weavers and the whole folk renaissance and music as meaning. And for me, it was almost a totally separate thing where for me, music was, it was more visceral. It was more about the body, and as it is, and as my mind works and my songwriting, I can't write. The meaning is always there in the lyrics, and that's always my challenge. But I'm not interested in songs that are just like, ballads exposing a social injustice. I love story songs, but they got to have a groove, or they got to have some kind of rhythmic tension. And that was the part for me of music that I couldn't walk away from. I could walk away from storytelling songs, but I couldn't walk away from the power, the intangible power of, but also the communication, the actual. I was never really interested in being a solo performer. I wasn't interested. I mean, part of me would love to just be in the band and not be my band. I just want to be, like just part of the force.
Right. Well, it sounds like you got you got your priorities as far as a lot of time when we were talking about different musicians coming and going. I've been there, and ego tends to be one of the factors of if they're going to stick around or not. And for me, I love, like you said, that community feeling of I get inspired if I'm around another good musician.
Yeah.
I'm eager to play something that I just wrote for them. Like, what do you think of this?
Right.
And that inspires me to write more. And for me,
that's always been my driving writing thing, is wanting to write stuff that other people have fun playing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I remember being, I guess 15 is the typical age when it seems like you discover your own music. For your parents' influences aren't as much of a force anymore. You notice your own taste, even if you know that your parents wouldn't necessarily like it. And I remember it was at that age that I think I discovered your dad, because everybody knows Cats in the Cradle. That's just the one that you always hear on the radio. But my father played for me, Mr. Tanner, and he had me sit down. He goes, listen to this. Now he would play. Now he kept his 8-track, and for all I know, he still has them. But he played it for me, and here I am, 15 years old, sitting on the steps, and that end part when it says he comes back to town, and I'm sitting there, I'm 15 years old, and I'm crying, and he's just laughing because he knows he got me. And,
oh,
so
wow. How satisfying to make your 15-year-old, too cool, doesn't even want to talk to dad, to make him cry.
Well, yeah, because he would do a lot of the, sit down, I want you to hear this. But all right, I don't know. I didn't know if I would necessarily like it. And he goes, no, Cats in the Cradle? Yeah, well, it's this guy. And there was the concert that they always play on 44 WVIA and all. So I started watching that, and when I heard Mr. Tanner and he got me crying, I'm like, okay, you got me. I got to listen to more. And so that summer, I played that 8-track of short stories over and over and over again until the 8-track broke, and then I taped it and I played it again. And then I realized, you know what? I want to do this. I started to learn guitar earlier on, but the way the guy was teaching me at the time was, here's an A, here's a B, there's your 2 strings, go practice that, and I'll see you next week. So it wasn't until, I was a vocalist for years after that, but never really focused on the guitar. And then, I guess, oh boy, it was around maybe mid-90s. I don't know when DVDs really were more commonplace than costing $50. Remember when they first came out, DVDs were like way too expensive?
No, I don't know that.
But no.
I'm sorry, I was a child.
I still have a VCR, so.
Well, yeah, mine just died. But no, I got yeah. Well, right before I switched over to DVD, I got the soundstage concert of your dad's.
Mm-hmm.
The hour-long that starts with "What Made America Famous," and I'm like, okay, I want that type of guitar, which is the classical with the wider neck,
mm-hmm.
And I want to be able to do that. I want to write songs, or at least try to write songs like that. So I went out and got a guitar, and the guy who was playing guitar for me already said, "No, I'll teach you. What song? What do you want to learn?" And I said, "Oh, we're not going to do the, you're not going to try and teach me sheet music?" He goes, "No. What song do you want to learn?" I don't, what the heck was I thinking as far as difficulty? I picked WOLD, which is not 3 chords. Well, yeah. Now, yeah, sure. Now, why not? But at the time, he starts showing me. I'm like, oh, so this isn't 3 chords. But
a lot of
ever
those songs
since,
have little tricks in them.
Like, how do you mean?
Well, the form, or something that makes them a little bit more complicated than they seem.
Well, yeah, and you know what? And I want to ask you that, because I was curious of your opinion. I always say, as opposed to anybody else, you can mention any type of artist, any song, you can cheat. You know what I mean? When you're playing a song, you don't have to do it exactly.
Yeah.
You can kind of do the easiest version. I don't think you can do that with your dad's stuff.
It helps when you're a girl.
What do you mean?
I mean, well, it's just you're not going to sound like. I mean, I whenever I interpret anybody's songs, most of the songs that I cover when I do are male songs, and it's harder for me to do a song that was a real, like, say, an Aretha Franklin song or something that I really, then it's like where she's already interpreting the melody and so then you're trying to figure out where, what's the skeleton of the song, and what, where how do you improve on this? But I can, I'm kind of irreverent when it comes to my dad's music, and especially some of the recordings I feel like got overproduced, and I'm more of a minimalist. So and also because I'm not playing guitar. I mean, I am playing guitar, but I'm not playing his. If I do his songs, which I do a few times a year,
you sent me one, yeah.
And so, yeah. Then it's because my band is totally different. My band has no idea who. I mean, they do by now, but they don't care about Harry Chapin. They don't care about replicating the exact finger picking pattern. And I mean, whenever I do any song, I pretty much start with the basics of the melody and the phrasing, and I don't try and like reinvent it right away because I want to respect the song. But as far as the arrangement, as far as the instrumentation, it's automatically different for me, especially because sometimes some of my dad's songs, the first time I covered his songs in performance was as a trio with acoustic bass and saxophone. So
right.
Right away it's different, and they were jazz musicians, so
sure
they were.
Well, I always liked. I mean, whenever I can find them, I love to just watch, like you said, the stripped down. Like Living Room Suite, I was one of those where I thought it might have been a little overproduced, as far as an album goes. But like just to hear him when he would do like a live performance, the acoustic guitar comes through. I think that's the meat of it, So I agree with you on that. I always tell people, if you're gonna do a Harry Chapin song, do it right or don't do it at all. Because if I hear one more guy in a bar trying to play Cats in the Cradle with lacking, like the emotion has to be there. Even I think he had said he never got tired of doing Taxi after all the performances. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And to still have that passion, and that's what the thing that connects all the people that I love musically is that sincerity and that passion. Yeah. I don't think it works if someone's just going to try and go through the motion.
Well, that's
right?
true for anything.
Yeah. I would say.
Yeah.
You really need passion to do anything in the entertainment field, especially music.
Even if it's understated, it doesn't necessarily need to be overtly expressive.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be Lady
dramatic
Gaga, I guess,
passion, right?
But right. What, Nick?
I said it doesn't need to be Lady Gaga.
Oh God, no, it does not. No, I don't think anything needs to be Lady Gaga, in my opinion. But
but she has her place.
Yeah, I'm not trash talking her. I'm just saying there's there's better stuff out there.
Right. Well, you don't know this, Jen, but I tend to be more of less accepting of. I don't know. I consider myself a pain in the rear end when it comes to music.
Yeah.
Whereas as Nick,
me too.
Right? I mean, Nick's much more. Nick made me a mixed CD that I'm going through now, and so I'm trying to broaden my horizons.
Right.
But I know that. And my wife's the same way. She can listen to just about anything and find the good in it. Where I'm tearing stuff apart left and right.
Well, I'm still picky, but I'm only 26. I know you don't know that, Jen, but I'm younger, and I grew up, outside of the same influences that you guys had. And
do you buy CDs?
If it's a band that I really really like, I will. I'll go out of my way to actually buy their album. Or if I go to shows and I see a new band and I liked their stage presence and the songs that they played, I'll buy it at the show because I know they'll get the music or the money for it. But
so it's almost like an emotional express. It's when you're buying music, it's like it's a vote. It's an endorsement.
Pretty much, yeah. And
you could get the music. You're expressing approval.
Right.
A deeper level of approval.
If I sort of half like a band, but like I know a friend of mine has their album, I'll take it from them and burn it onto my computer or whatever. And only keep the songs that I like and whatever. And Mac's given me a bunch of music, and
Yeah.
the whole sharing thing. I don't want to, like, I don't download music illegally or anything like that. But it's shared. It's given to me by people that I respect their musical opinions.
Yeah, which my generation did with mixtapes and
Right, and before
things.
them, letting borrow records and things of that nature. But I feel like I'm a little looser than Mac only because I could like an artist based solely on their lyrics, or like based solely on individual pieces of their music. The bands I really like have everything like combined. Great
Who are
music,
they?
great. It's gonna. You might have heard of them. For example, like Coheed and Cambria is a band that I really like.
Uh-huh.
I don't know if you've ever heard of
Uh-huh.
them, but they're
I've
one.
certainly heard of them. I don't know their music, but
They're
I think they've actually been they've been supporters of Why Hunger,
yeah,
formerly known as World Hunger Year. I think they've contributed tracks to our compilations and so on.
that wouldn't surprise me at all. But I mean, it spans. That's just one of the newer bands that I like. But I mean, I love like the Who, and I love Led Zeppelin, and I'm really into like a lot of rock, a lot more rock than I think you guys are. But still, I like um,
Oh
a
no,
lot of the same.
you can't. I did my Zeppelin time.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
I was a
I thought
teenager. I was a teenager in Long Island in the '80s.
okay.
I was gonna say,
Not
who
hair
hasn't had their Led
metal.
Zeppelin time?
Yeah. Yeah, well that's what I wonder is like kids who are 15 now, do they still go through that Zeppelin, Hendrix, Pink Floyd? Is that still the rite of passage? That
I
it,
hope so.
Right.
but
I was gonna say,
Bohemian
I hope so.
Rhapsody. Yeah, I wonder if is it just universal? I mean that music that was the dawn of I'm a sort of I like to geek out on the history, but that was that was a particular moment in American history, and where all these cultural forces convened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does that will that continue to be what it is? And my husband and I talk about like when yes, you could make mixtapes then off the radio, or your friend could record you and whatever. You could always sort of borrow music, but the ease of it, like then when you made a mixtape, you had to sit there and play the track. You had to do it real
Yeah,
time, and
yeah,
then you
yeah.
would do your little labels, and now you type it. And, so and you would save up to buy a record or a CD even.
Right.
So I just wonder now, do kids like now music, like the disposability factor and the fact it's like easy come, easy go, does it like lodge in your brain? I mean, the most poignant track, we just did a workshop. Are you there, Matt?
I think he just left by accident,
Just fell off.
but I'm
Okay.
sure he'll call back. You can keep going
But
though.
the most poignant, we did a workshop at the at Queens College, my trio, and I've heard him tell this story before, but it really killed me. Jamie Foxx,
Yeah.
our guitar player, telling the story about, and he's maybe 10 years older. I don't know exactly how old he is, but he's of a different generation. But he talking about being a young boy in Los Angeles and hearing sitting on the dock of the bay on the radio.
Great song.
And he didn't know what it was called. He didn't know what it was, who it was. He had never heard anything like it before. And he was just turned upside down.
Mm-hmm.
And so he just spent days, like all his free time, just flipping around the radio, trying to find it again and trying to find what it was called. Who is that? What is that song? And then he had that moment like you had, like I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do something like that.
Music, yeah.
But just like now you have the iPhone, you hold up device, and you have the app which identifies the song.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I never got any of those. I never got any of those things, but I remember being in a car and hearing some tune. It was very hooky. It was a Beck tune. I think I'm in love, but I forget what it is. But I just typed in my phone. I didn't the lyric, the main refrain,
Right.
and and I didn't know who it was. If it was Beck, whatever, and it, then it came up, and
Right.
and then I knew, okay, that was Beck. So I downloaded the song, didn't buy the album, but
well, I think
Paul Simon. I was going to say Paul Simon.
I bought that album. I bought his new album because I thought, I should buy a new Paul Simon album. It didn't really.
Yeah, I get them all. I'm a completist. I don't know about you.
You should have given me a lot more Paul Simon, Mac.
I can.
Okay, please do.
You're asking for another pile of CDs.
Please do. I want it.
He made the mistake of showing me how to digitally copy stuff as opposed to a limited. I'm getting echo back.
Yeah, you echoed a little bit. You're fine though. You're fine now.
Okay.
Not for me.
Okay. Well, that's all that matters. But he showed me how to digitally, instead of like track by track where you get less amount. So he got a good sampling of people. I didn't even think about Paul Simon, but he had said, as far as the way people buy music, it could possibly hurt, I don't know, the concept album, because when you make an album.
Oh, totally.
Right?
I mean, an album, a concept album, whatever. I mean, for me, an album, I guess for me, an album is an album. Like it's even like there's something that happened even in the 90s before even digital where like a lot of great like neo soul or contemporary R&B like artists like say Lauryn Hill or something. You have albums where you could tell that it goes 45, 50 minutes, like just kind of like the span of time where you're able to really take in the body of work. And then there's like these tack on songs that are kind of like, they sound like a little bit like, well, this is just to give a nice check in the mailbox to my friend. Like it just sounds like sort of publishing money. Without it being like, but some people started, have started to, I guess it's always been like that since you had the CD and you weren't limited by the technical format. Right. But, I believe in whatever. I start sounding so old and crotchety, but I'm an album. I'm looking for the next album. I mean, that's what I'm working towards is the next 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Right, and that's the thing, because I want to. I don't think enough people do this, but I want to. If I like a song or an artist, again, being a completist, I guess it's easy because if I really like somebody, I want to get everything they have. I like that song, but it struck a chord in me so powerful that all right, I want to get all their other stuff. But I could think of a couple people who buy, say, well, it used to be a tape, would listen to the one song, rewind it, and just only listen to that one song.
Yeah.
I like being, without a better way of saying it, being forced to listen to the whole thing, because even if I didn't think I liked it in the beginning, after I listened to it maybe 2-3 times, now it clicks for me. Now I appreciate it.
Well, the real artists take you on that journey.
Yeah, and if it is a concept album, they have that whole, even the way that each track is put on the album matters.
Well, I wonder if
I don't know if the albums I've done have been a lot of times I have kind of a rough concept in my head, but they're certainly not pitched as such.
Right.
Like what's going on or whatever, but I mean, you when you put together an album or a set of a concert, you put thought into what tune goes next, and
sure,
the right level of contrasts and variation, and if there's a narrative. And
When you're writing a song, do you find it easier to think of the melody or the lyrics?
Neither. Now, it depends on the songs. It depends on often. Sometimes a melody will come first without words. Sometimes the words will come first.
Yeah.
Sometimes a concept without, and that is seeking the words. Sometimes it's a bass line or a chord progression.
Yeah.
I like to mix it up. I think that helps me make the songs varied. Variation is important to me as an artist. I think it's one of my priorities. It's not for everyone, but I like to have my songs cover different terrain.
Yeah.
Well, I know I've done that with my stuff, but I'll tell you, lyrically, I don't have a problem with writing lyrics, but it is so hard to, one, think of a catchy song, two,
Oh, sure.
right? I mean, because it has to be catchy to you before anybody else.
Yeah, because you have to believe in
it has to be original, and that's really tough because you start humming a new tune in your head, your mind goes to something that you already know. I don't want to rip off anybody, and then three, it has to be much different, like you said, much different than anything you've written before. Like I'm constantly, I'll usually do music first because it's harder to do for me. But then just to I don't know, cause myself aggravation, I'll switch it around just to see how that works out. And a lot of
I think that's good.
Yeah, it's not easy though. Like
and
for example, you're talking about.
I think it's good too.
Well, yeah, I think it inspires you more. You know what I mean? Because you want to get a certain sound from the instrument. But I'm trying to think. Like you were talking about trying to be. I don't think you used these words, but it reminded me of how I'll try to be cryptically poetic with my lyrics. If you know what I mean, instead of being very linear with, say, a story song, like your dad's stuff. Your dad's very influential with the way my songs have come out, but I don't want to just do that. So I'll try to be more like David Gray. I don't know how familiar you are with his stuff, but he tends to write like
my friend
really.
played drums with him, but I don't know his music.
Oh well, now you just opened a door. I'm going to be sending you some stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean he's one of those that you have to listen to a couple times before you get used to it. But his lyrics are very cryptically poetic, where they could mean a bunch of different things to different people.
Right.
I can't write like that. As much as I try, every time I start to write, I end up finding myself, oh look, I just did another story because I had a beginning, middle, and end. Oh,
that's great though.
Yeah, but if you're good at it,
yeah.
I think the key is when I took a poetry class where they defined a cliche as something that it's like a metaphor that you don't even see the images anymore. Like it's raining cats and dogs. Like you don't see the cats and dogs. You just see a lot of rain, and you don't even really see the lot of your brain goes on the shortcut of okay, it's raining a lot, but it doesn't it's not visceral. It doesn't like hit you. So you try and if you're trying in your storytelling, it's important to know if it's raining a lot or not. That's part of the story, and it's probably impactful to the outcome. So then you try and find a way that's not necessarily cryptically poetic, but just tells the story of, how hard was it raining, So you have to try and find a new metaphor.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess you're right. I mean, as long as you're not being cliche, I guess that's a win.
Yeah.
You just want to make it be alive in the mind.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, another thing I wanted to ask. I know you bring your boys with you to a lot of your shows, or at least when you're
Mm-hmm.
traveling, right? How do they like it? Do they
Well,
understand how
it's come
special it is?
it's come more. My older boy Maceo is going into second grade, and since he started school, it's not so much coming to the shows as coming on the trip. So we've
Okay.
tended to. He was never one of those like 5:30 a.m. let's play ball kids that you hear about with horror. He would sleep. He was a rock and roll kid. We would take him to the gig. The bartender's girlfriend would babysit him, or he'd be backstage, or he'd be sitting with a stranger in the black box theater, and we were playing often places that were fairly wholesome for kids, not always.
Mm-hmm.
But then we would dress him up and we would sell the CDs, say goodnight, pack up the gear, brush his teeth and put him in pajamas, and then we'd put him in the car seat, and whether we were driving 2 hours or 3 hours to try and get a leg on to the next city, or we were driving half an hour to the hotel, he would fall asleep. We'd put him in bed. It might be 11 o'clock by the time he was asleep, but he would sleep till 9:30 the next morning.
Sure.
Often, or maybe it was 8, but it wasn't, horrific. But and then he just came along, and we would be very improvisational as far as the babysitting. But since he's in school and now he has to wake up by 7:30, and then he has a little brother who naturally, not so much anymore, but when he was a baby, he would wake up at 6:45 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
So we had to more pay attention to the clock, and especially with the two, we would usually have a babysitter and at the hotel or wherever. So
Sure.
anyway, long way of saying they don't see so much of our shows anymore. My younger son, who's about to be 3, is on record pretty much every day is saying, I don't like when you sing. I try and sing. He sings. He makes up great songs. We sing to each other when we sort of like talk about, what we want or what we don't want. And so
Yeah.
that we'll have conversations that are singing. That's fine. But if I start like trying to work out a melody, like today we were doing a puzzle and then I was kind of bored, so I was trying to work on this, trying to find a hook for this song I'm working on. And he's like, "Stop singing, Mama. I don't like that song." I'm just kind of humming to myself. So, and he says he doesn't like when I sing. He does. I mean, he asked me to sing to him. Actually, I often sing "Flowers Are Red" to him.
There you
But,
go.
but anyway, they don't. It's Maceo, the older boy, came to we played 4 songs in a benefit the other night, and he wanted to stick around. The babysitter, he declined to go home with the babysitter. He wanted to check it out, and I was told that he was into it. He was riveted, but they certainly don't act fancy things for them.
Yeah. Well, my son just came and heard us for the first time on Saturday at one of our shows. Sat right up front, and I was worried that he, like you said,
Is
would
he
be
like
bored.
like 2 now?
He's 3.
Wow.
Yeah, he's 3, and his sister just turned 7 months. Everly, we named her Everly.
Nice.
After the
Everly brothers, of course.
That's a lovely name.
Yes,
It's like it's not
you.
reinventing the
Like
wheel, but it's kind of different.
And that's what I was aiming for. I wanted it to be
It's not like
unique,
another
but not
Caitlin.
right. So her middle name is Rose.
Sorry
So
to insult
Everly
anybody who
Rose.
named their kid Caitlin.
It's
Lovely
a
name.
very popular name. Yes.
There are many of them.
But Everly Rose we named her, and it flows nice. Like you said, it's unique enough. But she's not old enough to sit at one of our shows yet. But he did for the first time, and he was clapping and happy, and and he's heard these songs before.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, well, I did the one song Before You is the name of it, and it's about him. And, it's very subtle, and in the last verse, it gets you, it reveals that it's really about, my son. And I said that, this is about Mikey. So I play it, and we get done, and he yells out from the crowd, "Do another song about me, Daddy."
That's
So I'm like,
perfect.
oh, darn it. I guess I created a monster because now he's expecting it all the time.
Oh well, it's a narcissistic developmental stage, as it should be.
Yeah. Yeah, but it was sweet. It was sweet.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to see your uncle's band and meet them a couple
That's
weeks ago.
right. That's
Did I tell you
great.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and it was funny too because one of the things I love about your family, as performer wise, is they've always been, at least the impression that I've always had, and seems to be true, is very grassroots, very sincere, um, you know, very, very personable. Nobody's gone Hollywood, for lack of a better word.
Well, the
You
truth is,
know.
we haven't really had that opportunity.
Yeah, but that
We come
doesn't
by it
stop,
honestly.
yeah, that doesn't stop a lot of people at the local bar doing karaoke from thinking they're Hollywood all of a
I
sudden.
suppose so.
But yeah, it was nice. Got to meet Steve, John, Howie, and Abigail, who was a sweetheart and a wonderful surprise to have there.
Oh, she's a delight.
Yeah, I told her that we were email buddies, and she said, "Oh, I just saw her last weekend."
Yeah.
But what a voice! She's got a great, powerful voice.
Yeah, yeah. Well, her dad, my uncle, put her to work from a very young age, so she had no choice but to
Yeah, unlike
develop those pipes.
you chose it. She not so much.
It's true. It's true that her dad made her sing on his kids' albums.
Well, she mentioned
And
it. She mentioned the Cabbage Patch album
yep,
that I think was
yep,
Steve's.
yep. Steve and Tom collaborated on that. I'm gonna give the 2-minute warning.
Okay.
No, actually, I was just about to tell you that
We're pretty close.
I was just going to wrap it up. Yeah.
There you
So
go.
that's we are in sync. Are you're still there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, because the video
here
part
too.
of it went away.
Uh-huh.
So why don't before we go, why don't you mention some upcoming shows? Or actually, no. You know what? Mention anything you want. You can mention your shows. Mention why. Mention it all.
I will. But there's one show that I'm very fixated right now. I'm really wanting to make sure it's in. You guys have you're this audience could be anywhere, I guess, but we are playing. Yeah. I think it's not too far from you. Well, I'll start with the.
I hope so.
I'll start with the one I was talking about first, which is in Manhattan, in New York City, on Friday, September 28th. We're playing. I'm playing with a double bill with a friend of mine who's a really fantastic singer-songwriter and very much influenced actually by my dad in his style. Although he was a grunge rock, he was a rock star in the 90s with a band called the Verve Pipe. Do you guys remember the Verve Pipe?
I do.
That song, The Freshman.
Yes, I like that song a lot.
Brian Vander Ark, who is the leader of that band and has a good solo career. We're going to play a show together on September 28th, which is a Friday in Manhattan. It's at the Rubin Museum of Art, which is an art museum of like Himalayan pieces. But anyway, they have a series called Naked Soul. Naked because it's truly acoustic. I just tried to negotiate them to let them have my guitar player plug into an amp, and they were like, no dice. So and he doesn't play acoustic guitar, but he's going to have to learn. And I'm gonna be no mic. It's it's a beautiful room. It's like 150 seats, but it has nice walls for reverberations. So Brian and I are going to play that show Friday, September 28th. It's on West 17th Street, Manhattan. So good weekend in the big city. But then the next night, September 29th, we're playing at a great little venue. It's newish, called Kennett Flash. It's in Kennett Square. Do you know where that is? Is that far from you?
I don't know.
No, I've
I'm
never
in
heard of it. So
Northeast PA.
yeah, Manhattan's actually not
Northeast.
that far from us. 2.5 hours, but it's not that far.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Yeah, this is maybe southwest of Philly.
Okay, yeah, that's farther. But yeah.
Yeah, Kennett Square. It's a nice little town. I don't know exactly where it is. I think it's around there. Anyway, Brian and I are playing another show at Kennett Flash on the 29th, and then we're playing on the 30th of September at Fairfield Theater Company, which is in Fairfield, Connecticut.
Okay.
So we're doing a
somebody
3
sent me.
date run.
Oh, okay. Well, somebody sent me an email about you guys apparently doing a big family thing in December. December 15th.
December 15th. We're doing 2 shows actually, like 1:30 p.m. and 7:30.
Oh, that's cool.
And it's sort of there'll be a Christmas element. And it's a Chapin family show with my cousins and my uncles and the full in Bethlehem.
Right. That's
for Christmas.
Right. I think that's a couple hours from where we are, but I'd like to try and make that.
Oh yeah, that would be a good trip to make. It's a really cool venue. They made a performing art center out of like an old steel mill.
Oh, that's neat.
So, yeah, all the information is for all those shows is on my website, jenchapin.com. And also all my music, jenchapin.com, and all my music is streaming there, and all my recordings that I've made. And so, you can check it out.
We're going to put
there's also
the
a
link
link right on the homepage to whyhunger.org, which is a really great website. It's a great resource for inspiration when you get really depressed about our food system and the fact that there are 50 million Americans who are hungry. You can also look on this website for, confronting that reality, but also just amazing stories about the work that's being done on the grassroots level to address economic injustice. So there's a lot of empowering information there.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. I check it out, and we're gonna put the links in our description of this episode. That way they can go to it easily.
Great.
Hopefully that'll help. Yeah. Well, listen. Since we at the end of every episode, one of us picks a song, typically from YouTube that we can find easily, to play to help promote stuff that we love. If it's okay with Nick, can Jen pick this week's song?
It's totally okay with me. I just assumed we would play one of her songs.
No, I'd rather it be up to her.
That's fine.
Well,
is there anybody you want to promote?
There's a beautiful video that my friend Kate made for my song. It fits into a lot of things we've talked about. Having to be passionate when you're making music. But it's a ballad. It's called "Let It Show," and I wrote it for my son Maceo when he was still in my belly. And it's a really nice, it's a very artistic video.
Okay.
So, and it's right there on YouTube.
Okay.
Oh, definitely. All right, then that'll be our song. I do love that song, by the way.
People go from there. My biggest hit on YouTube is a rendition that we did of Van Morrison's "Into the Mystic."
Okay.
Which has like I don't know, 250,000 views or something, and some mostly very favorable comments, and then some hysterically negative comments. Like there was one that recently that was like, "Is this really Harry Chapin's daughter? She has no soul, and she should stop singing." You know,
man.
some really, yeah.
Oh,
Really
thanks the internet for
At the risk
going on
people
there.
let it hang out.
At the risk of getting a lot of negative comments.
You can see the video and then scroll down the comments for some comedic. The Let It Show video doesn't get quite that kind of. It's more sincere. It doesn't attract that kind of emotion because it's not a Van Morrison cover.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you have a healthy way to take that.
Yeah.
Well, I've been blessed. I've gotten so much good critical response. You know, mostly it doesn't mean anything. You know, or as far as you know, really creating mass audience numbers, but oftentimes when I do get negative response, it's so extreme that it's sort of easy to laugh at it.
Yeah.
Well, we're gonna let you go just so we can keep this under an hour. And thank you for coming on.
Yes, thank you very much.
Would you be
up
for doing it again in the future?
Sure.
Great.
Sure. Now that we've worked out this uvu thing.
Yeah,
next time I'll get my stylist and I'll have a full hairdo and ball gown and makeup. Well, I couldn't quite pull that together this time.
That'll be purely for us because this is it's just audio anyway. No one's gonna be able to see you. So if you wanna get gussed up just for us, then hey.
Yeah, that's why Nick didn't do the
I'll do it for you guys.
Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Perfect.
And
that's a wonderful
you'll replace Nick. You'll replace this center part little graphic image you
with
have.
The real.
Yeah, I will. I had a rough weekend and I looked like crap. So normally I look moderately handsome, but I'm not feeling great. So
you wanted to go incognito for this one. Okay.
Yeah. I didn't want to embarrass myself.
Yeah, it's not the best first impression.
Oh God.
Well,
all right. Well, thank you, Jen Chapin. No, thank you. You bet. Thank you.
Yes.
And again, thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you next week or next month, depending on when they let us load a new show.
Right.
I've been thinking about this way processed word of authenticity, and the one thing you should know is find your joy and let it show. All the slick faces on the TV, they tell us be fearful. We are warned very soberly. Don't you listen, turn away, turn away. There's a different melody to play. I've been thinking on this fascinating world about survival, and the one thing you should know is